success we'll have.
And the people I'm with, they mean business.
Clay mustn't know you're on the case. Nick, my husband is the one man in the world who can make that conference agree instead of adjourn.
I feel that Jeanette was wrong in going behind Clay's back and hiring you.
The point is, Jeanette hired me.
And that I resent.
The safest movie draft tonight, you'll listen.
On this episode of Old Joe's Reminiscence, Nick Bianco is hired by the wife of an old friend. He's a presidential aide who's being blackmailed. But when the man discovers that Nick is on the case, he wants the investigation shut down. I'm about to review episode 17 of Search, a show that had become my favorite back in the early 1970s. This episode was first shown on Wednesday, February 14th, 1973. Once more, I'm finding that it's an episode that I'd forgotten about over the last 50 years. Join me now as I watch it again for the first time. I want to warn you up front though, there will be spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode, or if you're like me and you just don't remember seeing it, I'd suggest that you pause this review now and watch the episode if you can, before we examine the Clayton Lewis Document. I got nothing from the teaser, and I didn't recognize any of the guest stars from the opening credits, so let's jump right in and see what develops. We start out with an exterior night scene in Washington, D.C. Then we focus on a discarded newspaper flapping around in an outdoor stairway. They wouldn't be showing us that if it wasn't pertinent to the plot of the episode. That scene would have gone by so fast in 1973, but today we have the ability to pause the video and read it. Disarmament, how far will the U.S. go? And there's a front-page photo story about the presidential aide, Clayton Lewis. And by some strange coincidence, there's Mr. Lewis getting out of a cab on the street right above the newspaper. Clayton Lewis was played by Craig Stevens.
Craig Stevens was born on July 8, 1918. He was on a career path to become a dentist when he got the acting bug while he was in college. He promptly moved to California and signed on at Warner Brothers. He made propaganda and training films for the Army Air Corps during World War II. His film career wasn't very fulfilling, so Craig tried his hand at television acting. He is best known for playing the title character in 114 episodes of the detective series Peter Gunn. The show ran for 2 seasons on the NBC television network beginning in 1958. ABC picked it up for its final season in the fall of 1960. Stevens reprised his role in Gunn, a 1967 Blake Edwards movie that essentially retells the first episode. Stevens retired from acting in the 1980s. He was married to actress Alexis Smith for nearly 50 years until her death in 1993. Craig Stevens died on May 10, 2000.
Lewis descends the stairway past said newspaper to the delivery door of Pam's photo parlor. He lets himself in. The place is dark and ominous, so I figure he's there for a clandestine meeting of some sort. He looks at his watch. Midnight. Suddenly, 3 photographic studio lights click on, blinding Mr. Lewis.
Hello, Mr. Lewis. It's really nice of you to take time out from your busy schedule to come here.
The voice mentions an embarrassing 23 days while Lewis was on vacation.
Now, I don't of your life, but I will. Unless you give me what I want.
He says that he wants to know the answer to the question that the newspaper had posed. What is the U.S. willing to give up at the disarmament conference? This is blackmail. The voice says that he'll be in touch again before Lewis leaves for London, which will be in the next 48 hours. The lights go back out. Lewis finds himself in the room alone, and he discovers that that voice had come from a reel-to-reel tape recorder that was connected to a timer. We cut to Mrs. Lewis telling Nick Bianco that she'll pay World Securities anything.
Anything.
Well, let me ask you, Jeanette. What makes you so sure that Clay's being blackmailed with phony evidence?
You can ask that. You, of all people, Nick, you know Clay. You were on the crime commission with Clay.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, he may still wind up in the history books as Mr. Disarmament. But he still might have been a bad boy once.
I'd have to go back and check, but I think most, if not all, of Nick Bianco's cases involve someone he either worked with or against while he was on the crime commission. Jeanette Lewis was played by Julie Adams.
Julie Adams was born Betty Mae Adams on October 17, 1926. She became interested in acting early on, and she appeared on stage in a third-grade presentation of Hansel and Gretel. She moved to California as a young adult. She took speech and drama lessons and hounded the movie studios. Paramount hired Betty Adams to appear in their 1949 film Red, Hot, and Blue. Universal hired her and changed her name to Julia Adams for their 1951 offering Bright Victory. She played opposite such stars as Jimmy Stewart, Rock Hudson, Tyrone Power, and Glenn Ford. She played Kay Lawrence in the 1954 film Creature from the Black Lagoon. In 1955 she made another modification to her stage name, opting for Julie Adams. When her contract with Universal expired, Julie shifted her sights to television. She was still acting into her 90s. Julie Adams died on February 3, 2019.
Cam's preliminary check of Clayton Lewis comes back clean. Jeanette Lewis insists that her husband not be informed that Nick is on the case.
Nick, my husband is the one man in the world who can make that conference agree instead of adjourn.
Nick presses her for some idea of what the blackmailer has on her husband.
It's about another woman.
She claims it's a false accusation about another woman. She looks about to break down.
Hey, Jeanette, take it easy.
Mrs. Lewis is our probe. Nick Bianco.
He's Bob Brawver, and if he looks familiar, it's because he's done stunts in just about everything ever made. After spotting an invitation, Nick invites himself to a party being thrown by a woman named Arlene Morrison. Nick says that everyone who's anyone is supposed to be there.
Well, anyone in town could be behind this.
Seeing the handwriting on that card, I think I could do a better looking job. Someone who's as well-to-do as Miss Morrison is supposed to be should have them made out by someone with more eloquent penmanship. Nick shows up at the apartment suite of Arlene Morris, Washington's leading hostess.
So you're Nick Bianco. Yes, Jeanette called me about you. I'm delighted you could come.
I'm very delighted to be here.
Arlene Morris is played by Rhonda Fleming.
Born Marilyn Lewis on August 10, 1923 in Hollywood to an actress mother, Rhonda Fleming was bound for the silver screen. She appeared in films from such famous movie makers as David O. Selznick and Alfred Hitchcock. The beautiful starlet appeared alongside such leading men as Gregory Peck, Robert Mitchum, Kirk Douglas, Glenn Ford, Burt Lancaster, Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, and Rock Hudson. She made 4 films with Ronald Reagan. She also acted on stage on Broadway, and she did numerous television guest appearances. Rhonda Fleming died on October 14, 2020.
Nick wants to speak to Miss Morris in private, so they retire to an office where Bianco cuts right to the chase.
Miss Morrison, how much do you know about the Clayton Lewis situation?
Flashed? You are subtle.
She feels that it's wrong for Jeanette to have hired an investigator behind Clayton's back. In the next scene, Bianco is behind the wheel of a big Lincoln, and instead of his usual Jensen Interceptor, he's changed out of his conservative suit and into a rather loud sport coat.
Blackmail has called Lewis to meet at the Forsyth Electric plant, and he's agreed to be there. I'm on my way now.
I found it odd that he'd gone to so much trouble to maintain secrecy last night, but now they're meeting face to face out in the open.
I should have known it would be you. But you didn't, Mr. Lewis.
He's Alfred Barnworth, played by Anthony James, who appeared in scores of television shows. Bianco is watching from a distance.
Here's my proposition. I won't bring any action against you if you name your associates and give me a chance to retrieve the document. I do not need your deal.
Lewis drives away, and another big black car drives up. A silenced pistol appears in a partially opened window, and we hear a few muffled shots, and the blackmailer Barnworth goes down. Nick climbs down from his vantage point while the car drives off. When Nick finally reaches Barnworth, the man mutters a few dying words.
Alex Nevin? Well, I really want to have him killed.
Alex Nevin.
Bianco goes through the man's pockets. In his wallet, there's a Washington driver's license for Alfred Barnworth, no year of birth given. I found that license to be a bit funny, because I'd heard fairly recently that Washington, D.C. had decided to change their driver's licenses to actually say Washington, D.C. Previously, they'd said District of Columbia, since there was already a state of Washington. Well, District of Columbia apparently caused too much confusion. I guess a lot of people thought that it was part of the Columbia in South America or some other foreign country or something. Barnworth also had a list of 7 two-digit numbers in his pocket. The first 2 are crossed out. This gives Bianco something to ponder as we come to the end of Act 1. Act 2 finds us back at Probe Control's bunker, where Harris is running those numbers that Nick had found. We discover that Alfred Barnworth used to work on contracts in a department headed by Clayton Lewis. That was before Lewis became a presidential aide.
Now, what about this Alex Nevin?
I'm on my way to check him out.
He's about to knock on Nevin's door when a man opens it and tells Nick to get lost.
Okay.
It should come as no surprise that Alex Nevin knows Bianco from Nick's days on the Crime Commission. What else? Doesn't everybody? They go into Alex's office for a private conversation about Alfred Barnworth.
You're Mr. Barnworth's in worse shape than I thought. Not only is he dead, he's crazy. I mean, why would I kill somebody I didn't even take seriously?
He offers Nick a cut if Nick gets the goods on Clayton Lewis. On his way back to his car, Nick pulls out a notepad and a pen to write something down. And that's when he notices the inscription on the pen. Pam's Photo Parlor. We cut to him walking down that same stairway to the delivery door that we saw in the opening scene.
Nick, stand by. We've cracked the code on the paper you found in Barnworth's wallet. Each of the 7 groups refers to a sequential day of the week. Sunday through Saturday, S to S in the configuration. 5-2, the figure representing today, the 3rd day of the week. Maybe it's a password.
Bianco enters the photo shop where he surprises a blonde woman.
Hello.
That's the regular way in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
He asks about Alfred Barnworth. She stammers a bit as she responds. She says that she doesn't know any Alfred Barnworth.
Won't matter one way or the other to you that he's dead.
Bianco moves to leave, but she stops him.
All right, I do know him. He told me never to talk about him unless
What?
they knew the day's password.
Now, it's a good thing that he just had that conversation with Harris, because he knows the password, and he responds,
52.
Well, why didn't you say so in the first place?
And I never tell my password until I'm asked.
She thinks Barnworth worked for the CIA, and Nick runs with that. Barnwood had left an old briefcase with her. Nick picks the lock, and he scans the documents inside the case. They're unemployment documents. The only thing that seems noteworthy there is that one of his employers had been a nursing home, and that seems to be out of the ordinary for someone with Barnworth's background. As Nick is leaving the photo shop, a man jumps him and grabs the briefcase. Nick overpowers the man, and he gets the briefcase back. When Nick gets behind the wheel of his car, another man chloroforms him and takes off with the briefcase. That'll teach Nick to leave his car unlocked. Act 3 begins back at probe control. VCR Cameron seems to be missing in action. Miss James is trying to contact Nick, who's struggling to regain consciousness. Harris relays the information he's found about Barnworth going to the nursing home and begging for work.
Barnworth asked for a job there, even though they weren't advertising for help.
He was so down, they invented work for him. 2 weeks later, he quit.
When Nick wonders why, Harris tells him that they're no longer interested in why. We cut to Cam looking very odd, dressed in a suit and a tie, without his ubiquitous lab coat.
You are off the case, Bianco.
He is at the home of Clayton and Jeanette Lewis, where he tells Bianco that World Securities is off the case. Clay was shaken by Barnworth's murder, and Jeanette felt that she had to tell him about hiring Bianco.
I lied to you, Nick. The blackmail isn't about another woman. It has nothing to do with Clay's private life.
But everything to do with Alfred Barnworth and the Hanborough nursing home, right?
Oh, Lord.
Clay finally comes clean. He'd spent 23 days in that nursing home during the Cold War, recovering from being burnt out by months of negotiations. Cam goes on one of his rants.
You are incapable of obeying a straight order, aren't you, Bianco? You insist on a full-scale debate. All right, now listen. Helping a friend to fight a real or a tricked-up morals charge, that's one thing. But this is a matter of national security. On the coldest, most impersonal level, what we have here is a White House aide, a presidential advisor, who admits to a history of mental breakdown. He himself.
Mr. Cameron's right, Nick. Under the circumstances, perhaps I should bow out of public life.
Barnworth had insurance against his partners in crime, and Nick decides to look for it. I see that he left his car unlocked once again. Some people never learn. You'd think that after serving on the crime commission... Well, his mobile phone buzzes.
Hello?
Nick, it's Pam Perry.
Pam Perry. Why, hello, Pam Perry. I was just coming over to see you.
Well, you better make it fast. There've been 2 men in a truck outside my store. They've been there too long.
Well,
I'm thinking it's a setup. That manservant at the Lewis residence who was watching Nick while he was talking to Mrs. Lewis, he peeks out the window as Bianco pulls out of the driveway. Next, we see Arlene Morrison on the phone with Jeanette Lewis. It's one of those gaudy French decorative telephones that were all the rage back in the 1970s. Fancy, fancy. Ooh la la.
Ever since I talked to Mr. Bianco, I've been brooding and brooding about Clay.
Arlene is pressing Jeanette for some information. She's got to be dirty. We cut to Nick tripping over the props in the dark photo studio. Pam is nowhere to be found. A curtain moves. Nick lunges through, attempting to surprise someone, but it was just being blown by an oscillating fan. He spies an envelope that has been slipped under the front door. It has Bianco written on it. It's a trap. When Bianco pulls the envelope, two of Alex Nevin's goons smash through the door and grab him. We cut to Pam and Nick being held in Nevin's office.
What kind of joke is this, Bianco?
Nevin threatens to harm Pam unless Nick spills the beans on Clayton Lewis.
Alex Nevin was played by Don Gordon. Pam Perry was played by Anna Capri.
I still have the feeling that she's in on it, though. Nick tells Alex to clear the room first.
Oh, no way. Are you joking? Now, you don't want these other people to hear it. Right around here, there's a desk, pen and a paper. Write it out.
Nick stands, feigning a walk around the desk, and he suddenly takes out the three goons and holds a gun on Nevin.
Hold it.
Good thinking, Alex. You gotta lead us out of here, and nobody's gonna follow. Come on.
Nevin, Nick, and Pam take a ride in Nevin's Lincoln. They stop in a secluded area, and Nick makes Nevin get out.
There you go, Alex. There's enough for bus fare. Next time, be a little cooler, will you?
Pam gives Alex a look as they're pulling away. Call it a forgotten moment or a premonition, I've had my suspicions about her since the very beginning. And that look cinches it. She's working for him. As they're driving, Nick voices his suspicions about her as well.
You could be in with Nevin. Oh, hold it. Don't say, how can you believe that? And what do you think I am? Because I can easily believe it.
If I'm in with that Nevin, why don't I grab the gun from the glove compartment and just blow your head off?
Because I still might lead you to Bonworth's insurance policy.
He has Pam take him to her apartment. She walks in and says,
Go on, help yourself. Search.
Thanks.
There's a music sting, a camera push, and Pam glances at the apartment across the hall. A man nods. Isn't that stuntman Bob Browver, the guy from the Lewis house? Nick looks around. He says that Barnworth would have to be crazy to leave it lying around out in the open. He would have had it on his person, and the only thing he had on him was... Would you believe the old microfilm and the pen trick? Nick's examining that microfilm when Pam lets the cat out of the bag.
Photo negatives of Clayton Lewis's medical history?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't much insurance he had, was it? After all, we have the originals.
Oops. The guy who'd been waiting across the hall barges in, fires at Nick, who deflects the shot with a chair. Pam goes down with the second shot. Bianco throws the chair at the guy, knocking the gun from his hand. They take the fight out into the stairway. Stuntman Bob Browver leaps at Tony Franciosa, who moves out of the way, sending the man through the window and to the character's death in the street 4 stories down. Act 4 begins with Bianco pulling a key from the dead girl's fist.
That's a curious final gesture, Bianco. To clutch that small key. Unless it had betrayed Lady, wanted to draw your attention to it.
Now, I'm down with most of the tech they utilize on Search, but this is a point where my mind revolts against my suspension of disbelief. Nick has Cam perform some sort of magic to locate the lock that key fits into.
Ken, I need a long-range magnetic trace to find the lock this key fits.
You got it.
Let's go.
He finds a hidden wall compartment containing 2 photographs of the vases, or should I say vases, in Marlene Morrison's home.
What's special about those photos?
I don't know.
But I'm going to find out.
Where you going?
The police should be here any second.
And I have a date.
Nick decides to pay her another visit. He's figured out that she's the head spy. She was partners with Pam until Miss Perry was no longer necessary.
Yes, poor dear Pam. Unfortunate, but necessary. You too were to be terminated with extreme prejudice.
She asks Bianco how he managed to get away, and he tells her that her man took a dive.
Reliable help is so difficult to come by.
Yes.
She's eliminated everyone who could implicate her. Without proof, Bianco isn't even worth killing. But unbeknownst to her, he knows exactly where those documents are. All he has to do is break back in later and get them. Cam confirms that the statue isn't booby-trapped, but the safe itself is. Bianco opens the safe, grabs the documents, and runs to hide behind the couch as the safe blows.
Bianco, it's gonna blow in a second.
I think I've blown your entire setup.
Well, that wasn't a bad episode. I was a bit confused about how Alex Devlin fit into the scheme, though. I think I've said that Bianco was my least favorite of the 3 regular probe agents, but he was okay in this one. No blatantly sexist comments. And I'm still wondering why Nick was driving a Lincoln in this episode when until recently he drove that sporty Jensen Interceptor everywhere he went. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I can't remember a thing about most of these episodes that were my favorite show at the time. I guess some things just fade over time. I know I watched Hazel every day after school, but the only thing I can remember about that show was in one of the episodes, Hazel's boss got a traffic ticket for failure to signal a turn. He fought the ticket, and they found that the sun was hitting the turn signal at just the right angle to make it look as if it wasn't blinking. At least that's what I think I remember about that episode, and the rest of the episodes are a blank. If you liked this review, make sure you tap the like button. If you're not already a subscriber, consider hitting the subscribe button. And thanks to all of my subscribers out there. I've got a few more episodes to go, and I'm planning some additional content after I view the last one, so don't forget to activate the notification bell so you'll know when those post. Until next time, save it!